Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is White Lightning 777. And I was just made aware, I heard a thing about, and I saw it, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter are now, for some reason after the 8th, having a rule that anybody who they say contest the results of the election or, is wrong because they're saying it's not disputed and they're going to cut out videos dealing with that. This is insane. And I don't know if this was done just prior to the Texas case, but currently the state of Texas is suing 4 other states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, I believe, over the fact that they violated the Constitution of the United States. They violated the Electors Clause because they made changes to their election procedures using the judicial and executive branches of their government when the legislature didn't meet. Basically, what happened was, due to the coronavirus, the legislature did not want to all get together and vote in the Capitol like they normally do in these 4 states, so they delegated it out to other people, and turns out you can't do that. The electors are appointed by the legislature. In fact, the legislature doesn't even have to let you vote. They can just appoint, people themselves. Basically, electors are appointed the same way that senators used to be appointed, which is by the states. Among other, Texas claims that this disenfranchises everybody who in their state who voted properly, and other states that voted properly without breaking the rules, without violating the Constitution, because their citizens are. They're also claiming that this, as a state, Texas as a state is represented by its 2 senators. The vice president, who the vice president is of great importance to Texas because that's a tiebreaker vote and the Senate's close. So, the thing of it is, with a court dispute, we have an adversarial court system. You have a plaintiff and a defendant, and they are in opposition to one another. They have disputes, and rather than going out onto the dueling field like they did in medieval times, they go into the courtroom and a judge or a jury adjudicates that dispute, hopefully properly. So it's disputed. They say, well, you can't contest the results because it's not disputed. It is disputed. The results are being contested. Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube have lost their mind. Who determines whether an election is disputed and who wins the election is determined by, it's going to be basically by the Supreme Court, then their state legislatures, or if neither candidate gets to 270, it'll be settled in the House of Representatives. Now, when a court issues a finding, a decision, that is a finding of fact. That means this is actually true. We don't know what that finding of fact is because the courts haven't decided anything yet. The Supreme Court has original and I guess mandatory jurisdiction in the case. So unless Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube have a time machine, they've gone into the future, seen what the results are, and they've come back into the past to enlighten us ignorant peasants as to what that is, they don't know what they're talking about. You can't adjudicate the future, and Trump hasn't conceded. Elections, when these 4 states took shortcuts. And I have the Texas lawsuit. I actually have the whole 93 some odd pages that I've looked through it and read it. Disputed. This is shocking. In fact, the chances that Biden pulled ahead after 3 o'clock are about one quadrillion after a statistical analysis. That's a hell of a dispute. The idea, and I get it, these guys, they're leftist sites, and Biden's their guy, and they like the Democrats, and they like AOC, that's fine. But you can't sit there and lie. Yes, currently, as of 12/10/2020 at 8 o'clock in the morning, currently, which is, well, it's almost 8, the election's disputed. If one or the other concedes, it's not disputed. Then it's not disputed anymore because they've come to an agreement. And we'll see. And if it goes to the legislatures, I can't picture Republican legislatures voting for a Democrat president. All these states have Republican legislatures. That's why they were sued. Democrats and other rhinos out who in other branches of the government gave an unfair advantage to Biden because the mail-in votes were people knew in advance they were going to vote Democrat, and they made it real easy, and the Republican one violated due process. It violated equal treatment under the law. Signatures weren't verified, and it's so messed up that they can't possibly be sorted back out. We can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again in any of the states. So those elections are voided. Now, if you look at other lawsuits like Sidney Powell's, you're talking a little bit Ghost in the Machine and Dominion and the internet. It's a lot more circumstantial and, kind of a little bit more. It's valid, but it's, pretty technical. And I'm a computer guy. I like computers. I can understand it. Most people can't. But this is very, very factual, and it's very legalistic. It's like, you did this. You made these following changes. Not the legislature. They're just looking at facts and legal precedents in other cases. There's no, the person hearing the suit isn't not expected to somehow make that intuitively leap of faith and agree with the plaintiff in this suit the way that Sidney Powell and even Giuliani did theirs. And the best part is the president is joining as a co-plaintiff, so all of the data stuff that may be classified, like the seized server in Germany, if that happened, and the intercepts of the votes going to and from and having it changed, the NSA may have all that classified data that exists will also be brought to bear upon this case. So yes, it's disputed. Could he still lose? Maybe. But the odds are at least 50% that President Trump will win this election. And when these sites claim something is disputed and you're proven wrong, you're not going to have any legitimacy. This is why people are going to Parler, MeWe, and Rumble and whatnot. You can't just decree, like the Queen of England, that somehow something, isn't disputed or isn't true because you don't like it. Facts don't care about your feelings. And the active suppression of stories about, and another interesting statistic, people went and studied Biden voters, and they asked Biden voters, did you know about Hunter Biden's laptop, or Tara Reade's rape accusation, or the money from China, or did you even see pictures, for example, of Joe Biden fondling children inappropriately on camera in public? And these are not deep fakes. These are actual pictures of him at parties and having kids sit on his lap and creepy shit like that. None of them did. When most of them were unaware of it. And when they were told about it, 17% of those Biden voters said that they would have voted for Trump had they known that. So the suppression by the media skewed the election. So, the fact that, you're not going to manipulate elections. See, after this stuff is over, no one's ever going to believe you. These three organizations have totally destroyed their credibility, and probably people, at least Trump voters, at least MAGA people, at least Republicans, are going to start to leave these sites, and you're going to have one internet social media universe for patriotic people and another one, a separate one for socialist type individuals. Basically what you're seeing is the cyberspace being divided up like the country currently is. But it's insane to say that you know what the election's going to be. It's insane to say it's not disputed. And 17 other states as of now have joined with Texas filing amicus briefs and assisting. So you've got 17 states at the Supreme Court versus 4 states, and they're claiming, well, you can't dispute the election. It's not it's disputed and it's settled. And if you say it's not settled, we're going to ban you because you're lying. Well, first of all, they're not publishers. You guys aren't publishers. You're not, I'm not, publishing, editing. You're just, hosting the content. There's no obligation. If somebody puts out something, that doesn't mean that you disagree with. That doesn't mean that that is taken as your opinion. Everybody knows that unless you're a publisher, you're not interjecting your opinion into what people put out. And if, by the way, if you are, you're violating that Section 230 law. The liability is because once you start putting your thumb on the scale and start warping public opinion, and manipulating people, that's a contribution. The time and spent going online for advertising and all that can be considered a contribution. So not only are you guys wrong about the election being disputed, you guys are probably violating campaign finance laws, because what you're doing is essentially giving free advertising to people by putting your thumb on the scale and then trying to hide it. I mean, free speech, like Texas is saying, when in doubt, try the Constitution. If something is criminal, terroristic, illegal, or espionage, of course, something like child porn, obviously keep that off the site. But if something is otherwise objectionable, who cares? If you don't like it, change the channel. Go click on another video. Go block a user you don't like. It doesn't matter whether, it's objectionable. There is no obligation on any web page or social media site to please all of the people all of the time, or even most of the people most of the time. If something otherwise objectionable should be pulled off the internet, there would be no porn on the internet. There would be no gambling on the internet. There would be no witchcraft on the internet. And the other thing, and disagreeing over an election doesn't really pose any direct risk to anybody. I could even see, people, they are saying crazy things about the coronavirus and stuff, and, a person might, for example, with quackery be led astray. Quackery is illegal. I could see maybe showing an interest in, seeing how crazy people are about that. But, if somebody takes hydroxychloroquine and doesn't get the vaccine and they get sick or whatever, maybe misinformation might harm somebody. This isn't that. That doesn't harm anybody personally. There's nothing otherwise objectionable about disputing an election. Now, of course, in my opinion, socialism and theocracy are the worst mistakes human beings have ever made, and they are the cause of most wars and suffering in the world. And socialism, in the case of Democrats, or theocracy, like what the jihadis are doing in Iran, will totally wipe out civilization. Having said that, but social media isn't really responsible for that either. Yes, the elections are disputed. No, we don't know who's going to win the legal proceedings. We don't know if those 4 will simply switch to Trump, if those 4 may get pissed and all vote for Democrats, if it'll split 2 and 2, if neither candidate gets to 270, or they may not do anything. They may just say, we screwed up, we're not doing nothing, and sit it out. And no one gets 270, then it goes to the House. Interesting thing about the Texas lawsuit, they're not asking the Supreme Court to award the election to Trump. They're just saying, run it the right way. Now, we know if the legislature rules were followed, Trump would win. We know that 4 Republican legislatures are not going to vote for a Democrat president when those are 4 majority Republican legislatures. Liberals in other parts of the government and rhinos and people around them kind of broke the rules anyway. the reason the legislatures didn't meet was because they were afraid of the coronavirus, and they thought if everybody's got to be in the same room, they'd all die. Well, you shouldn't have if it's too dangerous to change the laws, you shouldn't have cheated. You know, other states didn't cheat and break the rules and violate the Constitution, and they voted just fine during the coronavirus epidemic. It wasn't necessary for these four to cheat. Yes, it's disputed. You know, if it wasn't on the news, if you have CNN and MSNBC reporting it one way and Fox News and Newsmax and OAN reporting it another way, that's disputed. You have multiple media outlets disagreeing with one another. If you have people protesting because they have a grievance because something happened that they don't like, that's disputed. That's why they have a grievance. Of course it's disputed. My God, people. Are you crazy? Have you lost your mind? Yes, at this point, the election is disputed. At some future point, we'll figure it out. And if Trump even said if he loses the Supreme Court case and loses the Electoral College, he'll concede. But, you're stupid to go through an election and not use every legal option you have. And even if that means, hey, you're a sleight of hand or you win on a technicality, you know what? All's fair in love and war. If you can't even win a clean election without cheating, I mean, how are you going to handle Vladimir Putin? You can't even figure out how the Electoral College works. How the hell are you going to deal with the European Union? It shouldn't be fair to run for president. It should be completely unfair to run for president. The system should be stacked against you and you beat it anyway to run for president. Because if you're going to control all of our nukes, you should be able to beat the odds. Biden? Trump? Yeah? Yes, the election's disputed. Any idiot multi-million-dollar company that says otherwise is full of crap. This is White Lightning 777 signing out.